Welcome to our updated Demon Form Infernalist, not using any broken mechanics or overtuned skills. This is a high damage variant of the build. I will discuss a different variant, but leave the planner for this build, which is 99% similar, only some support gems and a ring are swapped. The reason I don't recommend this is because the build can be fatal if not played correctly, so use at your own risk. For example. So for that reason, we will not recommend that particular build. Here I will show the safe version of the build. Obviously we have less damage, but we are not able to kill ourselves, so long as we set this up exactly as I show. Variations can be made, but the foundation must remain the same, building around cast speed, recoup rate, and flame rate. Before our brief showcase, and further deep dive, let's watch some maps to see how the build plays, in 99% of the game. Let's first show a quick overview of the build, for anyone who wants a fast showcase, and then I will go back to important points and explain them. The skill tree prioritizes life recoup, energy shield, and cast speed, with any leftover points going into critical bonuses. The Prism of Belief is not for Comet, but for Bone Cage, to increase our mana costs. The From Nothing Jewel can allow us to allocate skills near Bulwark, or Unwavering Stance. The Megalomaniac Jewel must have at least Soul Bloom, to increase our energy shield recovery. Other jewels focus on cold penetration, and any combination of damage bonuses according to our budget. The From Nothing Jewel lets us take Hail Heart, for more life recovery, when we trigger Recoup with our Infernal Flame. Some of the skill gems, like Blink, and one of the Ember Fusillades, are bound to a separate weapon set compared to every other skill. This is so if we accidentally transform while in a map, we have access to Blink as well as a DPS wand and focus, and can even kill rares, or bosses in a comfortable time, but obviously not as fast as when we are in demon form. Due to the changes made to demon form, it is much more difficult to sustain it forever, and using a portal to refresh the cooldown is time consuming. This is why we equip weapons, and use them if we have to. We will return to the skill gems shortly, and focus on the important skills and effects, as well as interactions with our items and skill tree. For now, we can hover over the items for a quick overview, and then, we will return after the showcase to explore the build's mechanics and interactions. Even though we don't use mana, we still make use of the flask with our support gems, so make sure you get the same stats on your flasks and items as shown here, or in the planner. If you are happy to portal when you transform, you won't need weapons equipped. I highly suggest you do though, as sometimes we cannot avoid losing our form. Using the exact setup we have just shown, which is the same used against Zesht, we will see what our recoup can go to. While we wait for that to increase, I will now explain all of the important interactions we make use of in this build. I will do so as if you are a beginner, so if you are familiar with the build already, please use timestamps to jump to where you want to see. We can see our resistances are almost maxed, and our fire resistance is at 82%. This is because we are using soul cores in our armor. Also notice that we have some amount of life and energy shield. The reason this is important is because of our Pyromantic Pact Ascendancy skill. What this does is convert all of our mana into Infernal Flame, which fills up as we cast, instead of emptying, but we take fire damage when it fills. The damage is equal to the combined amount of our life and energy shield. We can reduce this damage with fire resistance. The higher our mana costs, the faster our flame will fill, which causes us to take damage more frequently. As well as high mana costs, lower maximum mana will also increase the rate we damage ourselves. That's all well and good. We cast spells and take damage. Now, the way we regenerate from taking Infernal Flame damage is through the recoup mechanic. When we take damage, we will restore a percentage of that damage over 8 seconds. With the pliable flesh skill node, this duration is lowered to 6.4 seconds, which makes us recoup faster, over a shorter window of time, but we still recoup the exact same amount without it. It just increases the speed of recovery. This helps us because we cast spells with some delay in between, especially when jumping through a map, so the extra speed boosts our recoup when it starts to drop. We can see our life recovery is over 13,000, and also our energy shield, because we have the Sacrosanctum armor, which allows all life recoup to apply to energy shield, essentially doubling our recovery. These effects are further enhanced with the Soul Bloom and Hail Heart skill nodes. Now that we understand Infernal Flame, let's look at how we will deal with the damage we take by utilizing recoup. But don't worry, this will not take long and is easy to understand. We must first add our life and energy shield together. Then we work out the multiplier for our fire resistance. After that, we can calculate our recoup multiplier. From here, we must divide our value by 8, because our recoup lasts for 8 seconds. Now this tells us how much recoup we will get per second, when our flame fills once. But what if our flame fills up multiple times a second? We take the value we just calculated, which is the recoup we gain from filling our flame once, and we must now factor in our mana cost as a separate multiplier. To do this, we take the mana cost of the skill we are using, and then divide it by our total Infernal Flame or mana. It is all the same to us now. The flame rate is hard to calculate accurately, because when we cast a spell, any extra flame that goes over our maximum will carry over and overflow, but we only get the full amount if we overflow once. If we overflow multiple times with the same skill, we do not get 100% of the overflow. In practice, I realistically fill my flame 2.5 times on average, with this cost and speed, compared to the theoretical 3.5 times I should get. And now for the finale. The last multiplier we must consider is the cast speed, which is the easiest to do. Simply take the cast rate of the skill with any bonuses you have. Once we have the cast speed, we must divide it by 1, and in our example, we end up with just lower than 3 seconds. For the sake of easy numbers, in this demonstration we will round it to 3. So what's this all showing us? Well, we know now how much recoup we have from filling our flame. We also know how many times we fill our flame each cast, as well as how many casts we have per second. Once we have got these numbers, all we have to do is multiply them together. We also take advantage of Hail Heart and Soul Bloom to further increase this recovery by 15% for both our life and energy shield. Now we have the actual recovery per second calculated, we can extrapolate it over 8 seconds to find out how much recoup we should have and compare it to what we do have. After some rounding, we should expect a small variance, but we have shown that these steps do represent the figure shown on the character screen. Unfortunately, this does also prove that either Infernal Flame Overflow is bugged, or it's intentionally designed to limit itself for some reason. But, I guess, maybe, nobody at the GGG testing department thought to cast spells which cost 2,500 mana at 3 casts a second. Skull's Bridle also helps us generate much more recoup, but is very dangerous to use. Seed of Cataclysm is good for its critical bonuses, but we really want it for its increased mana cost. Ming's Heart adds a huge damage bonus, especially when using the Embitter support gem, but this reduces our life and energy shield, meaning we recoup less. We've still got a few stacks to go, so let's quickly go over our Demon Form ability. In this version, we go for unlimited stacks. If you're new to this build, you may be wondering what all of these stacks are supposed to do. Well, we can see quite a few effects here, which do increase with level. This is a max level demon. For every second we manage to survive, we get a stacking debuff which drains our life each second. We will counter this drain with life recoup, which we trigger from our Infernal Flame. There are also other ways to recoup and sustain more stacks. As compensation for ever-increasing damage, we also get some amount of spell damage per second. After level 90, we unlock Demon Form level 20, for 18% per second. We also get a flat amount of cast speed, which doesn't increase with stacks, but does help with us not being able to use any weapons while we are shapeshifted. Our other ascendancy is Grinning Immolation, which grants us 50% more critical damage bonus, and constantly ignites us. We can reduce this amount of 15% per second, with our fire resistance, and as we recoup so much already, this is not a problem for us. Normally, the ignite would be a downside, but we the Eternal Youth Keystone, which allows our flask to recover energy shield, and our life instead recharges, with a delay, just like energy shield normally does. This interaction allows us to use our flask at any time, because we are constantly taking damage, we are never at 100% and can preemptively stack our flasks. This will last for the duration of as many times you can press your flask. That's all of the ascendancies, and where most of the complexity lies. I will now go over the gems again, and highlight supports with special uses. Blink is used on only one of our weapon sets, and we activate it by casting another skill, which is also bound to the same weapon set. Ember Fusillade is used for its low cast time, and we take advantage of this by using multiple of them to activate different effects. Our second Fusillade detonates any volatility stacks we have, which we get when we critically strike using our Frost Wall. When we do critically strike, we gain extra chaos damage for all of our skills. When we detonate our stacks with the Ember Fusillade skill, we take damage, and we are able to recoup this damage to sustain higher amounts of life and energy shield. We also take advantage of the pins our bone cage is capable of inflicting, and we can combine this with the bone shrapnel support on our Frost Wall, to cause even more explosions, and with the magnified effect support we are sure to hit as many as possible. The Unleash support is mainly used for its whopping 150% mana multiplier, but it does give us an average of 25% more damage, so it's our best choice. Spell Echo also reduces our cast speed, which is the opposite of what we want for this build. Our cast on critical setup utilizes the Embitter support gem, which converts the chaos damage we get from our Ming's Heart into cold damage. This lets the bonus amount be affected by cold penetration, or cold exposure, which we also inflict. If we crit too many times, too quickly, we can fall over before our recoup catches up with us. This is because when we take 20% of our life in a hit, we can only survive 5 hits before we trip. This is why I suggest to use the Inspiration support, to lower the Infernal Flame generation, and also to not use Impetus, or Energy Retention. If you want to increase DPS against bosses, or are level 100, and you don't mind dying every now and then, of course, you should replace Elemental Focus and Concentrated Effect, with Impetus and Energy Retention. While leveling, I don't suggest this. Frost Bomb is used to apply both cold exposure and shock to bosses or tanky rares. We achieve shock application with the Ambrosia support, as well as conduction and lightning penetration gems, but this is why it is important to use a mana flask with increased total charges. Withering Presence is used to increase the extra damage we get. We can use the Withering Touch support gem in Frost Wall, but it also decreases the skills damage. Herbalism is also socket, to increase the flask recovery, which helps when we are first starting our recoup loop. With Extra Spirit, we could also choose the Warm-Blooded support. Lastly, with Demon Form, we only want to use the second Wind support, as Ingenuity is taken by Frost Wall. That's the Ascendancy, and gems. Now we just have the items and skill tree to go. As just mentioned, our mana flask must have extra charges, to increase the damage from Ambrosia, used by Frost Bomb. Our life flask must also have the stat which removes our mana, but has no effect on us because we don't use mana, and benefit from the extra recovery rate, up to 100%. Our belt can have increased flask recovery, and reduced flask charges used, which both help us as we rely on Eternal Youth to kickstart our loop. We also prefer a fine belt, so that we have a way to generate charges against bosses. It's not many, but anything will do. Our rings are interchangeable. You could have 2 of the same, or 1 of each, depending on your mana costs and amount of recoup. Another Seed of Cataclysm is one of the few ways we have to increase mana costs, so if you need that, this could be an option. Our amulet must have damage recouped as life, and cast speed. Ideally we would have +3 to spell skills, but a +1 or 2 will work fine as well. If we can get any spirit, that is also a bonus. Our armor, Sacrosanctum, can be equipped by putting extra strength in the skill tree, and then removing it once the bonus from the armor is gained when equipped. The helmet, gloves, and boots are used to stack as much energy shield as possible, and cap off our resistances. Our wand should have +4 to all spell skills, with some cast speed and spell damage, either physical or cold damage will work for us. We also get a +2 spell skill focus, with as much energy shield as we can get. The weapon swap is used for blink, so we must have a scepter to gain the spirit required, and we also use the crest of Ardura to decrease the cooldown. It's unstoppable now. Our health is draining too low. We made it to 717 stacks, with our actual setup, without cheating. If we wanted to cheat, we could get, let's say about 2,200 stacks, and that is with 150,000 life recoup, in demon form, so we didn't use any weapons or offhand. Let's check out the skill tree, and see what choices are important for this version of the build. Overzealous gives us increased mana cost of skills, which is very important as we have few sources of it. We also get as much cast speed as possible. Here, we can see almost every energy shield node has been taken by us, and is important to increase our life recoup and survivability. We do actually take every single damage recoup node on the tree, except for one which is too far away. The loose flesh notable gives us 15% recoup against elemental damage, which does work, but won't show in the stats page. Because we are only level 90, we have a few skill points still to get, and the other stats we have are more important than critical bonuses, so eventually we would like to get more, but this is our last priority. Eternal Youth is used to mitigate some of the Infernal Flame damage, and make it easier to start our loop by offsetting the damage to us. Soul Bloom increases this recovery, as well as the recoup we get from Sacrosanctum. If we also have the From Nothing Jewel, which allows allocation of skills near either Bulwark or Unwavering Stance, we can choose the Hail Heart Notable. One of our skill nodes in the tree causes damage to bypass energy shield. It's only 5%, but when we are low on life, for example, when we reach our highest stacks in demon form, our life will drain to 1, so if we cast a skill while we are at 1 life, it will be fatal for us. We can also play this build without demon form. If you want to play a tank with high energy shield and lots of recoup, just simply remove the demon form ascendancy points, and then select one of the Bathat options, either more spirit or energy shield, depending on what build you turn it into. That's all we have to say about the build. If there's anything you still aren't sure about, or something I've missed, feel welcome to ask any questions you have. We can enjoy the rest of this run, where we get 15% of our experience at level 90, in 6 minutes. Thanks for watching, and take care, until the next one.